Good morning. Thank you for being here. I will have a talk about yellowfish culturing in Europe and USA. I sent out a questionnaire first for a presentation at the RAW meeting in June. At the RAW meeting this year there was a special day for yellowfish symposium, and all those guys, especially from the United States, who are dealing for many years, were there, and it was a fruitful combination. And I sent out the questionnaire, and enlarging it is in the last 4 weeks to send out the questionnaire again to the European Society, and obtained 17 other results, and they were incorporated in this next figure. First I will talk about introduction, then the results of the jellyfish survey, and then the first steps of the culturing in jellyfish, and afterwards the discussion. The response of the survey was sent out almost 120 questionnaires. 53 were responded, for some high number of response. 40 of them came from Europe and 13 from the United States. 17 institutions numbered that they had no jellies in the collection. All of them were in Europe. The reasons why there were no jellies in the collection was more than lack of employment, collection, or lack of space, total costs, and we can imagine why. Another question was future planning jellyfish on display. Almost half of them said, okay, we will do that in the future. And the proposed species that were cured then is mainly the Aurelia rita and the Phylorisa punctata. Also the Cassiopeia is also a very important species. In all the institutions were 28 species of jellyfish pronounced. And as you can imagine, of course, the Aurelia rita is most of them. Also interesting was the figure of breeding in the institutions himself. You can imagine that it is easy to, or it is not easy to show jellyfish when you don't breed them, because it's not often to offer them. Otherwise, the Phylorisa punctata is also a major species, and of course the Cassiopeia species. As I said, 128 species were pronounced, and one institution had 13 of them in the collection, and you can imagine, especially the last ones, they were only placed in that particular institution, of course. In what type of display are the jellyfish kept? And as you can see, mostly the circular chrysal and the pseudochrysals are used. Cylinder, I was thinking that were more cylinder in display, but that's not so much then. And as you can see, the species were held in different types of chrysals, of course. And the Aurelia was more in the chrysals as well. The Cassiopeia were also not held in cylinders, of course, but more in the adapted aquariums, and you can imagine why, because they are living downstairs. Interesting was also and what kind of volumes were used in keeping the animals. Sometimes those numbers give you a wrong idea, because when you see to the Aurelia rita, there is one institution with an 84 cubic meters display, and that gives a whole different view about the average volume. But when you look at the turnover, and I put those big numbers out of it, the turnover rates is almost the same. So that gives a good impression what the turnover rate must be for those species. The water quality of jellyfish holding. 50% is kept in natural or artificial seawater. It's not so strange because most of the aquariums are dealing with natural seawater. But it was surprising to see that a lot of coastal institutions use also artificial seawater for their jellyfish tanks. All the jellyfish tanks, and that's also important, are equipped with their own life support system, mainly because the adaptation to the polyps in your main system is not profitable. And as you can imagine, also the different type of life support systems are also used for the jellyfish holding. There's a great deal of numbers. I think I want to plan some paper about it. So the figures, it's a lot of numbers now, but it gives an impression how you can keep your animals on the best, or how they are kept at this moment on the best way. And as you can see, for instance, the Aurelia arita, there's a great difference between the minimum and the maximum temperature. I think that is more or less adapted to the different species of moon jellies. But we don't know a lot about it, because some say you can keep them on tropical series, and others say you have to keep them on the cold way. I think it's dependent on where your source of animals will be. Otherwise, you can see the Cassiopeia will held very, very, very smooth, and the Filarisa is also lost seen. Salinity is not so surprising, mainly 33 to 37 per mile. That's regular for keeping salinity animals. pH is the same, despite a lot of displays had a lower salinity of acidity, around 7.5, 7.6. Mainly, of course, maybe the life support system is not so well. Lighting of jellyfish, the type of illumination, mostly there was used for the Aurelia, of course, the fluorescent lighting, and the HQE lighting, of course, at the Filarisa and the Cassiopeia. Especially those animals need a lot of light to survive. Illumination hours a day is mainly 12 hours. I think most of that is located to the visitors' time of opening of the institutions, of course. What type of food are presented to jellyfish? It was surprising to see that in the meeting on raw, the Selco-enriched Artemia naupli were less percent-wise. And it gives an idea that in Europe, most of the institutions feed Selco-enriched Artemia and not so much in the United States. But mainly you can see that enriched Artemia and frozen food is the main source of feeding. The frequency of feeding is almost twice a day in half of the institutions. Once a day is also a great number, and some institutions will do it more, 3 to 4 times a day. One of the questions was, do you quantify your food? Because it's little is known how much food do jellyfish need, and most of the institutions answered with yes or no, but didn't give any details. So maybe in the future it's important to see how do you quantify your food and what is the special need for the typical sources. When you look at the ratio live food, frozen food, there's also a great difference in it. Almost 40% give only live food, but you can see there is a real number of difference between it. Lifespan in months of the jellyfish. When I started with this part, the first question I always get is, how long do they live? And I said almost a year, more or less. But now with these figures it gives you a good idea what the really lifespan is for most of the animals, and most of them it will be there in 12 months, with some occasions of course, and you can imagine that for instance the Cassiopeia will live longer. I don't know why, but they do. Otherwise most of the institutions kept the animals in 1 year sentence. Asking the causes of death, I get, I think, 55 different ideas, but mostly of them were the inadequate feeding, less food or too much food, the presence of parasites. On the veterinary way you have also the bacterial and afterwards the old age. Technical were also numbered, like the tank size, low or strong current, the temperature and air bubbles in the water. The future plans of this work is working out a survey to present a paper about the results and deepen some items for further research. And the second step for myself is making the jellyfish farm to a success. We started 2 years ago with a total empty building and had some ideas. And okay, we started with nothing, more or less. Then we get some equipment in it. Live food prepare, and because Wormerveer is last way from the beach, so I have to prepare my own seawater. And then last year, on the 19th of December, the first animals came there, with thanks to Jan, Michael and Max, of course. And I just started first with the Filorissa punctata. The reason why was I had the idea that I start with a tropical one, because it's easier to warm up the water than it cool it down. And you can imagine, and he's doing it very slow on this machine, but when I had the first aphiras from the Filorissas, it was a great joy to see them on the microscope, of course. And he did it much more quicker than on this way, because I think when you shoot this one, I see you think he's only dead, but he survived. And there they are. This is after 4 or 5 months that the Filorissas did very well. You must realize that it was the first attempt to raise these animals, and it was a great joy to see that it was successful. At the same time, we did also the Aurelia aretha, and the reason why was that the in-house temperature at that moment, and it was in the winter, was regularly 19 degrees Celsius. So that's a good temperature to keep the Aurelia. So we kept them at the same time, and that was also really successful on that moment, as you can see. But it's not always a success. Afterwards, I took a lot of pictures of animals who were in this order. And that I have to investigate much more. What is the real reason? For instance, overcrowding should be a problem, of course, but currency is also a major problem. You saw those other pictures of the Rhizostoma octopus, and you should ask why, because it's not the typical one. Last week we went to the beach on the beach on North Holland to collect some jellyfish. The reason why was to obtain some gonads, eggs or fertilized eggs or whatever it is in those stranded animals, and to try to get pulps on it and to keep them. But one of them was lying there on the beach, and there was a little bit living in it. So I took it with me, and it was really good to see what these animals really are. Unfortunately, we had also a lot of dead ones, of course, and we prepared some gonads out of it, and they are still existing in a bulb, and I hope next week to see if there's something happened. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Piet. An incredible number of numbers. I think it's really good to have to see so many figures and to learn more about everybody's problem with keeping jellyfish, because many people had already headaches, I think, with jellyfish. Are there any questions?
Hello. We are culturing in our facilities Aurelia aurita, and it's a very common species to culture, and we look at different protocols, and in all of them always use low salinity water. So I don't know exactly at what salinity do you culture the Aurelia aurita, but for us this is a big investment of effort and manpower for keeping the low salinity. And I really try to find information about why it's so necessary to have low salinity with them. So the question is if you use low salinity too, and if you do it, if you really know why it's important to have it or not.
What is your low? What do you keep as low salinity?
Is 1020, 21 density, and this is in 19 degrees of temperature. I think it must be around 28 or 30 degrees Celsius, but I'm not sure about that. Or 28, 30 parts per thousand, I think.
Yes.
It must be around that.
I'm not sure if it will happen, because you know that some species of the Aurelia aurita will also occur in other different areas with low salinity, but I think the most of them will do it best in a salinity of 33 or 35 per mil.
So you use full strength salinity?
35 per mil, yes. That is about 1.025.
And you don't find any problems? And everything?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just a follow-up comment. We raise a number of species in Vancouver, and our salinity is always around 30. It's never much more than that. So it seems like most of the species do well at lower salinity, and whether it's a requirement to have a higher salinity or a low salinity for some of these species, I'm not sure, but all of ours do well there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank Piet for his presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome.